Welcome to Crosstalk Solutions. My name's Chris, and this is FreePBX 101 version 15, part 26, where we are going to be talking about ring groups. So we're finally getting into some distributed call strategies. That's going to be this video, which is on ring groups, and the next video, which is on queues. First and foremost, if you are enjoying this series and getting some benefit out of it, make sure you give me a thumbs up as well as subscribe to Crosstalk Solutions so you don't miss future videos in this series. Also, if you're interested in buying me a beer, you can click on the link down below to do that. And for all of your voice over IP needs, phones and servers and support on FreePBX, make sure you contact Crosstalk Solutions, and we are happy to help you out with any of that sort of stuff. Okay, ring groups and queues. And again, this video focuses on ring groups, but they kind of go hand in hand because they're similar. They are ways to get calls distributed out to multiple employees or multiple agents. Now, in general, the rule of thumb for when to use a ring group versus when you want to use a queue is that a ring group is used when you have more people answering calls than you have calls coming in. Whereas a queue is for when you have more calls coming in than you have agents able to answer those calls. So, for instance, if you call into Verizon, say, right, and you're trying to change something on your cell phone, you call in, it says, press 2 for technical support, you press 2 and it says, all of our agents are currently busy assisting other customers. Please hold and the next available agent will be with you, blah, blah, blah. That's a queue, okay? That's because Verizon has more calls coming into their call center than they have agents able to handle those calls. Where you would want to use a ring group is for something like a receptionist ring group, right? So basically your main front desk or maybe a main ring group for accounting or something like that, where you're going to get calls occasionally. You probably want to, ring 3 people simultaneously, and whoever picks up that call picks up that call. But those people are not being overwhelmed and inundated with calls all the time, right? There are more people available to answer than the volume of calls that are coming in. That's why a sort of like ring all type ring group works really well for those scenarios. Okay, taking a look at our IVR design, we are now further building this thing out. So we have 2 ring groups that we're using here. We have one here for accounting. It's ring group 5001. And then we have our main receptionist ring group up at the front, which is going to be extension 5000. Now, we always want to make sure that we're not stranding calls, so we also need a destination for each of these ring groups. So in the case of extension 5000, our receptionist ring group, the destination is going to be our general voicemail box. So basically, if we ring the ring group and no one picks up, where are we sending that call? In this case, it's the general voicemail box. For extension 5001's ring group, if we ring everyone in accounting and no one picks up, say everyone went out to lunch at the same time or something like that, we're going to play the announcement that we created in the last video and then dump it into Angela's voicemail box with no outgoing greeting, right? So the outgoing greeting is the announcement that we already set up. Okay, so let's dive in FreePBX. To add a new ring group, you go to Applications, and down here we can find ring groups. Of course, you can also use the contextual search in the upper right hand corner. We're going to say add ring group. We're going to call this reception. Ring group number is the extension number. So in this case, it's 5000. The group description is reception. And then we need to add the extensions that we want in this group. So certainly we're going to want Aaron Hannon, because Aaron is our receptionist. And then maybe we also want to add, one other person as a backup. So we're going to add also Pam Beasley. So when someone calls into the main front desk, it's going to ring both of these extensions. The ring strategy is ring all. There are a number of other ring strategies that you can choose. However, ring groups are typically just ring all. If you need something that's more advanced than ring all, you're most likely going to want to use a queue instead, which we're going to talk about in the next video. So ring time, we're going to set at 20 seconds. Typical ring time is 5 seconds per ring. So when we set this to 20 seconds, that means it's going to ring both of the extensions in our extension list for 4 rings. And if no one picks up, we are then going to move on to the destination, which we will set down below. If you like, you can have an optional system recording that plays before someone goes into this ring group. In this case, we're just going to say none. We don't have a recording that we're playing ahead of time. And you can also choose to play music on hold instead of ringing, right? So you can pick one of your music on hold playlists, or you can just choose ring. Normally where I'm using ring groups is, for instance, as the first place you hit in an inbound call. So like smaller organizations don't necessarily want an IVR. They want the receptionist answering every single inbound call. And in that case, it would be a bit disconcerting to the caller if they called in and immediately were hearing hold music, right? They want to call in and hear ringing, otherwise they think something weird is going on, right? So for queues, oftentimes we will use hold music for while they are on hold, but while we're ringing the ring group, we're just going to play the ringing sound. Caller ID name prefix is where we can prepend the caller ID that shows up on the phone with some sort of indicator, right? So for instance, in this case, if we look at our IVR diagram, we have our receptionist ring group, and then we have an accounting ring group, right? So maybe we want to tell the people that we're sending the calls to which ring group was dialed, or which ring group the caller ended up in. So we can say, you know, Jen, like that, for like general, right? So since this is our receptionist ring group, maybe just every call that comes in, we're just calling general. And this way, when these calls hit the receptionist's phones, they know that it's coming from that ring group, as opposed to, you know, someone calling their extension directly, either internally or from the outside world. Alert info is for Sangoma, Crosstalk, Clearly IP, and Digium phones. You can actually set a different ringtone for these calls. So when I'm setting up systems, I typically like to do a default ringtone for internal calls and then a default ringtone for external calls. But you might want to take it further and maybe have a third ringtone specific to a ring group or a queue that the employee is receiving a call on. Again, it's all just alerting the person picking up the call what type of call it is before they even actually grab it and take it. Ringer volume override allows you to set the loudness of the ringer. If a user has, for instance, turned down the volume of their phone, you can override that volume. And then we have a whole bunch of different settings here. Now, in most cases, you're just going to want to leave everything default, except there are two of these that I typically do turn on. Again, depending on the circumstance, but in general, they're okay to turn on. So number one is ignore call forwarding settings. I like turning this on because if you have, like, say, 3 receptionists that are answering a call in a ring group, and one of the receptionists goes to lunch and has Find Me, Follow Me turned on, you don't want general calls coming into that ring group to forward out to the receptionist that has gone to lunch. You only want it to ring at the phones at their desks while they're sitting there. So we are going to ignore call forwarding settings. And then skip busy agent is something that you can turn on or off. Basically, when you turn on skip busy agent, it means that anyone who is on the phone already with a call will not receive subsequent calls into that ring group. Which again, depending on your situation, you might want to do that or you might not want to do that. If you have a receptionist, 2 receptionists, and they're both on the phone, the third person that calls into that ring group is going to go to the failover destination, right? Versus having it then ring on their phone anyways, even though both of the receptionists are on the phone. I mean, the receptionist should be able to say, hold one moment, put the first person on hold, and then pick up the second ringing call, tell them to go on hold, and then go back to the first call to finish dealing with it before you then go grab that other call. Okay, so we're going to skip all of this other stuff. We will talk about call recording in its own video, but then we do want to set a destination. So for this reception ring group, our destination is going to be general voicemail box extension 6000. And we want to play a greeting for that general voicemail box. We want to use the unavailable greeting that we're going to play to callers because we've rang the ring group 4 times and no one picked up. So there's no announcement in between there. We want to play the outgoing greeting for the general voicemail box. So we're going to say the failover destination is going to be voicemail and then general voicemail box unavailable message. Okay, submit and apply config. Okay, let's add our second ring group. We're going to say add ring group. This one is going to be extension 5001. We're going to call this accounting, And then from our extension list, I know as far as the office is concerned, extension 200, which is Michael Scott, and extension 202, which I believe is Jim Halpert. These two folks aren't in accounting, but I actually want to run a test here. So we're going to pretend that these extensions are in accounting. So we're going to say extension 200 and extension 202 are the two members in this group. We're going to leave everything else default, except we're going to turn on ignore call forwarding settings, and we are going to set the destination to announcements, accounting no answer. Because if you remember, we're going here to this ring group. If no one picks up the ring group for accounting, we want to play that special accounting greeting, which then drops into Angela's voicemail box. Okay, so submit, and let's apply that change. Okay, so we have our ring groups created. Let's go ahead and try them out now. I have an extension that I've registered as 2004 Andy Bernard. So let's try calling our main ring group first, 5000. Now, there aren't any phones that I have connected that are members of this ring group. So we're just going to say dial.
You've reached the general voicemail box for Dunder Mifflin. Please leave a message and we will return your call as soon as possible.
Please leave your message after the...
Okay, so where that went was the general voicemail box. Since there were no extensions that are members of that ring group that are currently registered to the PBX, it bypassed the entire ring group, but it did go to the failover destination, which is the general voicemail box. Now let's try calling ring group 5001, which is for accounting, and both extension 200 and extension 202 are members of that ring group. So I'm going to do 5001. We're going to hit dial. And we can see that both of these phones are ringing. Let's go ahead and pick one up. Check, check, check. Hello, hello. Test, test, test. Check, check, check. So I've successfully answered that call to accounting. But let's see what happens if I dial 5001 and neither of these extensions picks up the call after 4 rings. So remember, a ring is about 5 seconds. We have the ring group set to 20 seconds ring time, so it should be about 4 rings, and then it should go to the failover destination, which is our closed accounting announcement.
You've reached the Dunder Mifflin Scranton Branch Accounting Department. We are unable to get to your call at the moment, but please leave a message and we will return your call as soon as possible.
Please leave your message after the tone.
And then there's the instructions, right? So remember, we did instructions only after that announcement. So essentially what happened is no one picked up the ring group. It went to the announcement, which played the accounting is closed system recording, and then went into voicemail box, Angela's voicemail box with instructions only. Now, if you did no message instead of instructions only, it would just beep, like beep, and now you're recording a message. So I kind of like to have instructions only because it says, please leave a message after the tone, etc., etc. It gives the caller a prompt that they're going to have to record something right there. Okay, so there we have our ring groups. The next video is going to be on queues, which are a very similar concept in that we are distributing calls out to multiple agents or multiple employees, but queues go a lot more in depth than ring groups. All right, we'll see you guys in the next video.